Hello, beautiful souls. I hope you're doing well. This is Masami. This is another video in my series about anxiety. Today, we're going to talk about how anxiety impacts the different chakra centers and how each chakra center has its own way of expressing anxiety. And of course, anxiety is felt and experienced by your physical body, emotional body, mental body, psychic body, bliss body, and so on and so forth. But today's video, we're going to focus a little bit more on how anxiety itself is expressed and shown through your various chakras. And I have invited Chris, my husband, to join me in this conversation. And I'm going to pass this microphone to Chris so he can introduce himself.
Hello, and thank you, Masami, for having me here. This is a really important conversation. I just want to say, first of all, in my background, I've worked a lot with people that are in very high stress and eventually high anxiety roles, first responders in particular, whether it's police or dispatchers or people in other roles. And so this is a very important topic that we all know impacts each and every one of us. If you watch Masami's last video, you've heard that since COVID, 25% of the world population is experiencing, or sorry, another 25% of the world's population is experiencing anxiety in addition to what we were already facing prior to the pandemic. So this is a really important topic, and Masami has assembled some fascinating information here. So I'll be here just asking some questions and making some comments, but I'll hand it back to Masami to get us started.
Yes, and we're going to definitely have the link below from our last video, the video that I did about anxiety and the importance of practicing concentration and how much the distractions and getting bombarded with too much information is causing us to actually have more anxieties in our lives. So please check that out below, and please subscribe to our YouTube channel, and please share this link with your friends and families and maybe people that you know maybe would benefit from listening to this video. We really, really appreciate this. And give us thumbs up if you resonate and learned from our videos as well. Thanks. So let's go to the first chakra. Is that good, Chris, that we start maybe with the first chakra today?
Yeah.
Okay.
And before you do that, why don't you just recap very quickly, what was it in the first video in this series that you wanted everyone to pay attention to about anxiety, just kind of on a global scale inside of us?
So, I think the anxiety, the number one thing is, like Chris said, it's on the rise right now. And so many of us are experiencing just by living on this earth right now. But I think the main thing that I wanted to get across in my first video is that the anxiety will dim your inner light, and that will dial down your true expressions. And so, but that's not always, good or bad kind of a thing. But the fact is, anxiety, so much of this increase in anxiety it's in some ways, it's a sign of our time that our deepest nature of who we are is actually calling us back, because maybe we veered off or we gone off course with what it is that is your true soul expression. So sometimes these anxiety symptoms that I'll be talking about today through first chakra on might be a way of you to say, oh, this is my body, this is my inner wisdom, my true nature way of calling me back to who I am. So that's kind of the main thing that I wanted to get out of with the first video, but with this one as well. So the first chakra, I'm going to get started with some of the signs and symptoms and maybe expressions that I see that you can translate, or maybe you can attend to some of these symptoms by saying, okay, this is my true nature calling me back, because I am building up these anxieties in me and all around me. So just see if maybe you could take notes on some of these symptoms that I'll mention here. Number one, the lack of energy and lack of motivation is a big one with the first chakra. And it's kind of physical motivation level. So maybe it's a little less with the mental motivation, but it comes from like sedentary life. You just want to take a break and sit down more often than ever before, chronic fatigue, or maybe you were diagnosed with things like fibromyalgia, or one of the most common ones that I see is sciatica. So sciatica pain down the back of the legs. That's a big one for first chakra's expression of other things as well. But particularly right now with this video, I'm talking about the anxiety. It can be expressed through things like sciatica pain and having to lean on something. I often see this a lot, but in stores, or, we have a couple of friends that when we get together, they have to always lean on something to talk, because standing up on their own 2 feet can be very exhausting to them physically. But that could mean that they haven't processed maybe chronic anxieties that they're carrying around about where's the life going, where's my future going, and things like that as well. And don't feel grounded is a big one that I've been working with several of my clients that have been sharing with me their physical pain that's stemming from the feet in particular. So bottom of the feet that tingle or burn or become very sensitive or just straight up painful. And they're not even walking around, but just lying in bed, they're experiencing things like this as well. Or ankle issues, the ankles that feel unstable or ankles that get really swollen. Feels like you didn't even twist your ankle, but feels very inflamed. Those are some of the things that I see as well. So I'll pause here for a moment. Chris, do you have anything that you want to add to the physical side of it before I go into other things about the first chakra?
Yeah, I'm kind of reminded immediately of, so the first chakra is all about our survival needs. And so I mean, one that I have seen a lot is like the very active, maybe like tapping of a foot that somebody does while they're seated. They might be not even conscious that they're doing it. And it's one of those things, it's physical. When you talked about the feet, it reminded me of that. Yeah, just kind of like that rapid tapping of the foot. Yeah. So that's one. But yeah, just coming back to the disconnect from being here right now as a being, because you're going into those subconscious modes of survival.
Yeah, that's an interesting observation. Yeah. When it comes to feet and ankle, it's fascinating to watch people sit down and maybe they have to cross their leg right away, right? It's like they can't stay without crossing the legs. Or if they're crossing the legs, they might be moving their ankles a lot. Or I've seen men in particular, let's say when they cross their ankles and then their ankle is sitting on the other leg's knee area, that they will be rotating their foot, or they might be touching the foot or rubbing the knee area. Like just a lot of kind of the leg oriented issues are showing up when
And
their anxiety is showing up in their first chakra.
yeah, one, what would pain in general fit into this category for you? Because some of those things that, just as I'm hearing you say that, crossing your legs, doing these things, sometimes people are squirming, and there's sort of like pain is something that can really bring you back to that kind of reptile brain and just suppress your ability to think and feel and have compassion and all that. So I'm wondering if that fits into this pattern too.
Well, the first chakra is very connected to the spine. So if the spine feels unstable, maybe some people have scoliosis, maybe they have hips that are rotated, or maybe, the tail that's tucked too much and they have lost integrity of their lower back curvatures and things like that. That can show up as your legs having to hold the upper body too much, even though the legs are supposed to be supporting the upper bodies. Upper bodies need to do its job to maintain the integrity too, but it's losing that a little. So from that, like legs and ankles and feet, and just kind of this lack of motivation because you're you're not moving forward using your locomotions, right? You're not using your legs to move yourself forward. Can show up, like I said, in a sedentary life. But also, this may surprise you, but the first chakra's expression of when it comes to anxiety will show up in your sense of smell, and particularly with a sense of like lack of smell. So for those of you that are maybe still dealing with long COVID, with the sense of smell that has disappeared or it's gotten really dialed down, and you're having a hard time getting a sense of like good aroma coming in, and that can be really anxiety inducing, but also anxiety can actually cause you to lose smell too. So it goes kind of the both ways. So it's interesting what's happening with the long COVID. And I can't help it but to think that the COVID has taught all of us the importance of being grounded, importance of communities, connecting with one another, being connected to this earth. And I think there's a lot that we're still learning about how this long COVID is going to impact us in our future. But the sense of smell, if you're losing them or you're becoming extremely sensitive to smell also, that could be that your anxiety needs to get looked at or processed or attended to. So I'll give you a couple things, but you get triggered by maybe something that it used to not bother you. But I remember when I would feel very anxious, I can actually smell somebody smoking a cigarette like 2 blocks away from me. And, I would say to Chris, right, Chris, like I would say, I can smell the cigarettes. And you'll be like, what? Where is that? But I can smell it, right? Because my sense of smell has been so heightened by the anxiety. So it can go both ways, like losing a sense of smell, which can cause anxiety, but anxiety can cause a lack of smell or losing the smell. Or opposite is this incredible sensitivity that will come up. And we say in English language, like a whiff of something, or you can smell something that isn't right, that kind of thing. So sense of smell is very important for you to feel safety and connected and grounded. So before I wrap up with the first chakra, do you want to add anything else to that?
Just very quickly, that we also know from trauma patterning in the brain that smell is one of the most powerful triggers to recall a trauma. So whether it's a PTSD kind of level of impact, or even just an unpleasant sensation or memory, that it's, even just having that whiff, like you said, can start to stir up all of these old patterns that remind us of things that aren't working, or that bring up old fears, and they can really start to make us have that anxiety toward what's going to happen now. And so, yeah, I think that one is so important. And I've heard that from a lot of people.
Yeah. And, like you said, the smell is so connected to our traumas. Smell is very connected to our history, our own personal history. It's one of the most acute senses that we develop as a baby. So before you can even recognize people's facial expressions or what mothers look like or fathers look like, you actually know what your caretakers smell is like. So there's a direct connection to the memories of your deepest part of the childhood. So if you're starting to notice that the sense of smell is either heightened or being suppressed, it might be a good idea for you to pay attention to, where's my anxiety right now? What level is it at? And can I do more things to address that, calm myself, maybe do some, truly like breathing techniques, to aromatherapy, to gentle going for a walk in the woods, things like that. And a couple more other things that have popped up in the last couple of weeks with working with my clients is that piriformis muscle pain, that is the right in the center of your gluteus muscles, become really spastic, and it locks up and it tightens right in the center. And when that happens, actually the nerve that runs behind it or within the piriformis, there are two kinds of people. but the nerve is the sciatic nerve. So that sciatic nerve gets impacted because some people's sciatic nerve runs inside the piriformis, and some of our sciatic nerve runs behind it. But in either case, when the piriformis gets locked up, that can actually cause the nerve pain. So addressing the piriformis muscle by using gentle stretches. I love using like a tennis ball to soften that region of the gluteus muscles. And one thing is that, you want to go for a walk, you want to move your body, even though the first chakra is expressing your anxiety through energy dialing down. You don't want to do much. You just want to just stay on the sofa or a couch and not do much. But that isn't going to help the piriformis either, because that can get it really rigid in there. And so that's something that I wanted to mention here for sure. And then that can translate to hip pain and hips going a little bit out of alignment. And you might be told that you have one leg that is shorter than the other a little bit. And those are all the things that you want to definitely look into by addressing your piriformis first. And I think a lot of the people that I've been working with are having hips and piriformis pains are taking on the archetypes of like a mother archetype or healer archetype, or maybe somebody that light workers and energy workers are wanting to help and elevate the universe and elevate what's going on this cosmic level, but maybe they're carrying on too much, like as if you're carrying a child on one hip and the other hip gets thrown off to the other side. So, think about what you're carrying on your hips. What are you putting pressure? What kind of a pressure are you putting on your legs in order to be the person that carries the torch, carries the light forward? And maybe give yourself a little break. And one of the things that the Chris has talked about a lot in terms of this type of anxiety expressions in the past in our videos is that saying that the I am here, like placing your hands right at the heart and saying, I am here. And just recognizing that this is where I belong in this moment can be very, like I would say, resetting. It resets your nervous system. It resets that kind of a runaway train of the anxiety expressions. So that's what I have for first chakra. And Chris, if you have anything else to add, and if you don't, we'll go to the second chakra.
Just the hip pain was something that I experienced excessively when I was in the midst of depression and having all kinds of issues related to a physical accident that was creating a lot of pain. So just a reminder that the pain, physically, trauma of any kind, and then the stress and anxiety and depression, all those things go together, and they really impact this root chakra and the way that our survival needs are expressed in the world. So that hip one really kind of hit something personal for me. I remember that very clearly when I first met you and was trying to do yoga, and I just could not
Yeah,
do anything with my hips without it being excruciating.
that's right. That's right. You had an extremely tight hips, I remember. And, no matter what we did, you just were having all kinds of pains with it. So we did spend a lot of time on the first chakra because I do believe that the anxiety tends to land and accumulates kind of the density in the first chakra a lot. And if we don't address that, it can have an impact on the rest of the chakras as well. So that's why I think it's important that we spend a little extra time on the first chakra. And today's video, we're going to go up to the second chakra, and then we'll continue with the other chakras on the next videos. Probably next 2 videos we'll be doing that so that you could get a full picture of how to work with the anxiety being expressed through various chakras. So the second chakra tends to show up as like lower gas. So we're not talking the distension at the solar plexus or the stomach level, or the upper small intestine called duodenum region, or the liver issues, but it's more of the lower gas. So we're talking lower small intestinal area, ileocecal valve area, and I would say the large intestinal area. And anxiety can show up as things like rectal issues, so rectum feeling dried up. Maybe you're experiencing constipations that are showing up more on the descending side of the colon. So ascending side is on your right side, but the descending side, as it starts to go down towards the gravity, you may find yourself being constipated. So then, it requires you to attend to the descending side of the colon by using maybe some oils and things like that to massage. So lower gas can develop in that area. Constipation can show up in that area. And also, you may not think that the constipation and diarrhea are, totally, how could that be related? But they are actually. The diarrhea can become very drying to our system as well. It can lose a lot of fluids through that. And so it can dehydrate you. So if you're having constipation on one day and then maybe 2 days of diarrhea, and then you're going to be constipated again for another 2 days or something like that. So alternating that kind of irritable bowel syndrome type of signature irritable bowel syndrome is kind of like that: diarrhea, constipation, and bloating and gas. Then that's definitely second chakra needing some support, and there might be some expressions that coming from your increased anxiety, like Chris was talking about earlier on, that we are all globally experiencing a heightened level of anxiety, and maybe worsening of the SIBO, so small intestinal bacterial overgrowth. But there's also CFO, where fungal overgrowth can start to happen as well. And this can, lead to dysbiosis, which your microbes are out of balance. So good guys and bad guys, but also you're not having variety of microbes. You might have more yeast and fungus, and then maybe parasites and some other viruses and things like that are turning your gut into the more of inflammatory conditions. That's called basically dysbiosis. And other things that I do see frequently that are connected to dysbiosis will be frequent yeast infections, urinary tract infections, so UTIs, and appendicitis. This is rare, but I have seen this over the years of working with clients, that all of a sudden you have this tremendous pain in your body in the chakra, second chakra area, and having to go to your nearest doctor, ER, and having to have the appendix looked at. Those are the things that you may want to be paying attention to a little bit more when the anxiety is heightened, and don't just say, oh, it's nothing. But I think it's important you check in with that with yourself. Can I lower my anxiety level? Should I need to go be checked by somebody? Those things, don't take these things lightly if you're having some chronic issues like this. And it'll show up as like a sharp pain, but also can be pelvic pain, maybe hip pain, things like that are similar to the first chakra, but a little bit more on the, I would say, like a waistline area of the pelvic and down to the sacrum area as well. Okay, so do you have anything else to add to that?
I mean, I'm just listening to you talk. It's just stirring up all kinds of thoughts here, because, whereas the first chakra is about, it might be your anxieties, whether you're conscious of them or not, are about your survival needs. The second chakra is really about those close-in relationships, particularly with family members. And there's a lot of, again, about safety that starts to creep into these things. And I just find it so interesting, the kinds of symptoms that you're pointing out here, because even from like a very basic psychological sort of view of this, a lot of these symptoms related to this chakra are about holding and releasing. So whether it's diarrhea and constipation, these are very deep patterns in us about it's sort of the beginning of our empowerment in the world and our empowerment in our family structures that we start to build up before we get out there with other people. And so that's what I'm seeing in here. And it's just this is such an interesting list that you're bringing together.
Yeah, and a lot of this was, I suppose from the chakra knowledge as well, but I was sitting with it and I was pairing it with anxiety, and it was a lot of it was intuitively coming from me, and it's through my own experience as well, but through working with clients for years here. And then I'm seeing more of these things that I'm listing right now. I'm seeing more of these showing up in my individual clients that I'm working with. And last couple things is that you'll definitely notice lower energy, vitality that will show up as low libido. And that can show up as connection with others, connection in relationships. So, and that can have an impact on finding relationships that you can trust, or relationships that it's supportive. So if you're experiencing some of those relationship issues, then it isn't just about who you are surrounding yourself with, or who are you attracting or not attracting, but could be that you want to address the second chakra and also the expression of the anxiety itself. So I wanted to make sure to mention that. And last thing I wanted to talk about with the second chakra that I think it'll be surprising to most of you is that the bitterness in your mouth and dry mouth and craving of salty foods or sugary foods can show up as the anxiety expressions for your second chakra. So if your taste buds have changed, maybe you're just not tasting much, maybe lack of smell that's causing that also, but you might have noticed yourself just not enjoying food as much as you used to. You're going for maybe same kind of tasting things, and you're always spicing things up or salting things just exactly the same way, and you just stopped having varieties in your life with the taste and foods. That can be that the anxiety starting to kind of settle in and starting to express itself in the second chakra, believe it or not. So, I always think of some people that are just not, they don't care about taste that much, and they just eat very plain, um doesn't have a variety in their diet. Then it's important we look at, well, how is this person's day-to-day life? Is this person experiencing maybe increased anxiety today, things like that? That's something that you may need to do a personal search on a little bit more and figure out. And don't dismiss the taste, because taste has a direct connection to your second chakra. And like I said, the narrowing of the taste buds is a big one. And remember that the 10,000 or more actually taste buds are located on your tongue. So if you are unable to enjoy the variety, or you've stopped looking for variety, maybe it's your time to pause and say, how's my second chakra doing? Maybe place your hands on your lower belly and just communicate with that part of the belly. Maybe you rub that area of the belly and say, I'm here, we're safe, we're doing well. And maybe encourage yourself to feel the love, feel the connection, feel the desires to want to taste different things. And today I'm mainly focusing on the physical expressions of the anxiety that gets expressed through various chakras. So I'm not going into maybe the creativity side or the desires that gets expressed through the second chakra, the sensuality, and so on and so forth. But hopefully this will give you some ideas where to get started and say, okay, these are something I don't want you to take kind of lightly, but then not too seriously to the point that you start to worry about it and create more anxiety. But just see this video as some sort of education that gives you a lens to different ways of managing, different ways of interacting, different ways of navigating this tough terrain that we're also all in, this chaotic world that we are in. And because it's really all about knowing yourself. It's all about coming home and getting the education you need to navigate the life that you're in right now. So I'm going to hand it over to Chris, and maybe he has some couple things to say, and then we'll wrap up for today.
Yeah, for me, I think just in closing here, what this is really asking of me, or I'm asking as I've heard you share these symptoms, it's challenging me to ask myself, how are my basic survival and belonging needs possibly being expressed as anxiety through these symptoms in the first and second chakras? And I have certainly experienced many of these symptoms over my lifetime. And so to me, that's kind of where I'm asking questions, is just how can I be more attentive to that? How can I be more aware of those kinds of needs, which often become very unconscious? How can I become more aware of those so that these symptoms, when they're speaking to me, I can start to connect them and say, that's somewhere where I can do some work and support myself. So thank you for these. This was really fascinating. And I look forward to the next video where we're going to go into at least the third and fourth chakras. So
yes, thank you. It was fun. And it's nice to have these kind of a back and forth to learn from one another too, because I had forgotten some of those physical gestures that we do that, and like you said, I think these things it's a vicious circle in a way, right? These symptoms are body's way of calling you back to say, come home, please be centered in you. But then when we don't address it, these symptoms can actually heighten your anxiety. So it's this fueling one another, right? That's why these videos are so important to us to make also, but to share and for you to maybe learn from, so that you can pay attention to, what is speaking to me and where can I put some interventions of your own, okay, so that you don't create this vicious circle that can start to carve out the patterns in you. So before it becomes a pattern of yours, we can put a stop to it. Okay, so we look forward to having the next couple of videos as we go through all 7 chakras and how anxieties express themselves. So please subscribe to this YouTube channel. We appreciate it, and give us some thumbs up if you really learned from this and enjoy these videos. Thank you.